Hi everyone, welcome to this second Greg Space Shed live stream lesson. So many of you were at the last one, but for those of you who weren't, I'm just going to tell you how I run these sessions. So first of all, for the first half of the session, I teach the lesson. So on this one, I'm going to do muted notes. I'm going to show you how to play the technique and how to use them in your bass lines. And then I open up for questions, for Q&As in the comments. So by all means, just say hi now. What's that say? Ready to be muted? Okay, yeah. Say hi now. Tell me where you're from. It's great to see some names there already. Hi Bill. Hi Durban. Hi Mark. But can you save your questions until the Q&As, which are kind of halfway through? So I'll tell you when to start putting your questions in. And when you do put a question in the comment, if you could put a capital Q before your question, then it's easy for me when I'm looking through to kind of see what are the questions. I'm going to test the audio first. And there's a big delay I've worked out on the chat on YouTube Live of about a minute. I think that's to kind of stop abusive messages. I think they monitor them, which I'm sure I won't get any. I hope I won't anyway. So there's a bit of a delay with the chat. But anyway, let me know if you can hear the audio fine, hear my voice. And I'm going to start playing a bit of bass and just let me know if you can hear them, if they're fine. And by the way, for bass, if you haven't got headphones or monitor speakers, try and sort that one of those out, because if you're just playing it through the iPad or the phone, you just won't really hear the bass. So if I just play some bass as well. So I kind of got to wait to see when these come in, but hopefully you can hear that. Hi Tim, hi Stefan, hi Bev. Hi Jackie, it's my sisters here to support me. Hi John, Brian. So here we go. So I'm just waiting to see if that's okay. I'm assuming that the level's okay, but I'll just chat that. So feel free to play along at home. Obviously no one can hear you. You don't have to be muted. You can play along with your amp. Doesn't matter what you play because you won't be heard. So it's actually quite handy if you do play bass to play along with me, because I'll be showing you how to play the muted notes. You can kind of try that at home. And also anything I do in the lesson, I've put on a PDF, and I'm going to give you that link towards the end of the lesson, so you'll be able to download that with tab and standard notation. So anyone? Here we go. Just have a little look. Sounds great. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to assume that you can all hear fine. Good. Okay, so if I go to the lesson part now, so I'm going to show you how to play muted notes, and they're sometimes called ghost notes as well. So this is the lesson plan. So I'm going to show you how to play the technique on the bass. I know a lot of people struggle with this, and a few people, I think Bill requested this lesson actually. And then I'm going to give you some exercises to take away to practice them. And I'm also going to show you how you use muted notes in bass lines. So why use muted notes first of all? Well, they add rhythmic interest. There can be some extra notes that you can put into a rhythm to add some interest, and you can also emphasize certain notes. So you can play the muted notes are quite dead notes. They don't have much tone on them. They're quite percussive. So you can play that and then lead to a note that you really want to emphasize. And also it adds funk, which of course we all want in our playing. So I'm just going to demonstrate a small bit now. If I just put a drum loop on, and then I'll play some muted notes. Now I've worked out if I put an MP3 on directly through the system, it's out of time with me, but hopefully this system should work fine. That's my excuse anyway. So this kind of run here, that's without muted notes, and if I do it with muted notes, so it instantly becomes a bit more funky. Okay, so that's quite fast muted notes, so don't worry, I'm going to break it all down for you. So if you want to play the muted note, first of all, I'd say start with your first finger on D, so the 5th fret of the A string. Okay, so we've got, if you want to play a muted note, take your first finger off and put all your other fingers down, so you're holding your fingers lightly on the fretboard, okay, and you should get this noise, that kind of noise. Okay, it sounds a bit rubbish on its own, but within a bass line it sounds great. So okay, so if you only have one finger down, you get the harmonic ringing through. You can hear that, the bit of tone. If you put two fingers down, it takes a bit more of that tone off. 3, it's a bit more muted, and 4, really muted. So the idea is you're just trying to get all your fingers on the strings very lightly. If you're over the fret, then you get the harmonic, which you don't want in this case. So I would have your bottom finger just kind of in the middle of the fret. So what we need to do now is just try and get this note here on the A string. Okay, and then obviously you try it on all strings. Try it on the E string, and then the D string. And obviously you're just plucking with your right hand like normal. Okay, and then the G string, and then you can go down all the strings. So you don't want that tone actually, so I've got to make sure all my fingers are down on that note. And just checking you hear that okay. Bev said a bit of Black Magic Woman, yeah, one of my favourite bass lines there. So hopefully, yeah, that's all there is actually to the main technique. Now it's quite a hard technique to kind of explain how to use in bass lines because it's a feel thing. It's kind of about timing really. If you want to do a muted note and then lead to a normal note, it's about getting the timing right. So that's what kind of generally people struggle with first of all, getting that timing right. Okay, so for the first exercise, what I want you to do is just with quarter notes, just play a muted note and then a proper note. So like that, okay, and I'll just play it with a metronome. So I've put it at 90. You can do it any speed you want, but I'll just illustrate that at 90. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and you can swap that around if you want. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And without the click, just so you can hear it properly. So when you're playing that muted note, you should barely hear a note. It should just be a percussive sound. And really it came from drums, this idea. They call them ghost notes more. So if you hear a drum beat, often there's kind of a few of the beats that aren't emphasised. They're really light. They're almost not there. That's why they're called ghost notes. So when I was kind of playing that groove earlier on, I was kind of playing what a drummer would do with his sort of hi-hat and his snare. So don't worry if it's just literally should sound like that. Okay, so that's the first exercise. And this is exercise 2. So we've just got a bit of a groove there. So if I put the metronome. Okay, so if we want to break that rhythm down, we're playing on 1. Then we've got a rest on 2, so we're playing on 2 and that's where we've got the muted note. 1, 2 and then we're playing on 3 and then 4 and. Okay, so just that first bar, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and. Okay, and then basically make sure you come off, you mute your string for the rest. So you're going to mute it as you say 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so just play it as slowly as you need to do to get that right first of all. So that's the first bar, and then the second bar we've just got 2 quarter notes on the end of the bar. So this is the second bar, 1, 2 and 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to play that slowly, the whole exercise. If you've got your amp there and you want to play along, that's great. So 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4. Okay, so that's the second exercise. Now the third exercise I'm going to give you, This is more of a groove, so we've got some different notes here. So I'll play that first with the metronome. And I'm going to slow that right down, okay? Do it at maybe 70. 3, 4, 1. Okay, and I'll explain what's happening there. So we've got the first beat, and then we've got on 2 we've got that rest, and then on and we've got that second rest. That's a 16th note rest. And then we play the muted note. So we're actually playing that muted note between 2 and 3. And we've got those 2 eighth notes are on 3, 3 and. So if I miss out the muted notes, that bar, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. Okay, and I put the muted notes in. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so they're quite fast, they're 16th notes. That's just the first bar, so I'll do that with the metronome. If you want to join me, that's great. 3, 4. And I don't know how helpful it is to think about that between 2 and 3, or you can just think about it just before the third beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then the second bar is almost the same. 1, 2, 3. But on that last beat there, we've got the C. Instead of playing a C, we're playing C, D. Okay, and that's a hammer-on, so you don't pluck that D. Okay, just hammer on with your left hand. So that second bar, 3, 4. So you can hear already just that kind of simple groove sounds quite funky. I'll do that back up at 90. And if I do it without the muted notes, so it's much plainer really, and with the muted notes, so it really adds some style to the bass line. Now I might just try that. I haven't tried it with this loop before. That drum loop I played before, I'll just try it and see. It's a lot faster. See if it kind of makes sense. Last bit, but yeah, that worked really well. So that's the kind of that's some muted notes incorporated into a groove. But you can, you know, the pattern I used before, that's a really common kind of rock groove, just to use those muted notes. If you listen to Dire Straits, you can kind of hear those kind of muted notes. Instead of playing, it will be, some of them will be muted. Okay, so yeah, you don't have to do it all fast. But then this one here, so this was sent in by Durban. Durban's on my reading music course at the moment. He found this exercise. It's really, really good one. Thanks for that, Durban. It's got so it's got these 4 muted notes, and you use a rake. So if you don't know what a rake is, it's when you use one finger to play down the strings. So you can kind of say you want to do C 5th octave. So C, G, C, backwards. That pattern, you can just do that with one finger in your right hand. So I'm just using my second finger there, or first finger. So that's a rake, when you just use your finger coming down the strings. So this muted exercise, these muted notes, the 4 muted notes, you've got to do with a rake. So you pluck the first 2 on the G string and then come down the strings. So if you just keep your finger around about the 5th fret, okay, just make sure you've got the notes muted there, and then you do so twice on the G string. Now you can do 1 2 2 2 or 2 1 1 1, doesn't matter. Okay, I kind of find it easiest to do 1 2 2 2, and you've got to do those evenly. So if I do that at 80, 3 4 1. Okay, so a bit slower. Okay, so you might hear this kind of rakes in a kind of sort of 70s thing. Sometimes you hear those in bass lines. Another place, actually, I did a lesson a few weeks ago on Shadows in the Rain, and towards the end of the bass line you'll hear some muted notes. So okay, so we've got that kind of pattern there. Now that's really fast, so I wouldn't expect you to be doing that now if you've just started to play muted notes. So if you're new to muted notes, and just stick with the first few exercises until you're really confident that you're getting a good kind of percussive sound with your muted notes. Right, we'll move on to an absolute classic. So this was actually one of the first bass lines that I ever learned, and I spent weeks, I think, just trying to work out. I didn't know what muted notes were. I spent weeks trying to work out how to get that muted note, and I actually worked it out. So luckily I ended up basically playing muted notes for my whole bass playing career, because I kind of worked it out straight away. So the basic pattern of Hotel California, if you don't know, it just starts, the root notes are B, F sharp, A, E, G, D, E, F sharp. So you just play the pattern on each root note. It's quite easy to remember. If you start on the B, you're just using all the dots. B, F sharp, A, E, G, D, E, F sharp. Okay, and so the bass line. Okay, so that's the beginning of the bass line. So really the whole bass line is just based on root, fifth and octave, a really common pattern for bass. Root, fifth, octave. So it just uses a combination of those notes on all of the root notes. So that goes down to the fifth. So you've got a note there, then a muted note, and then the F sharp. And then for the second pattern, it's a kind of answering pattern. It comes all the way back down to the root. So you play the muted note on the middle string. The middle string of that set, so on the D string. Okay, and it's difficult to get these muted notes to sound good when you're playing them slowly, but if you speed the bass line up, and it's a really iconic part of the bass line. It is to me anyway, probably to all of you, just to hear those kind of muted notes. Just wouldn't be the same without those. So okay, so that's just the verse, is that all the way through. The chorus actually does the octaves backwards. Okay, like that. So actually on the PDF I've written out a sample verse and a sample chorus. So once you have those two, you can play the whole lot, and then really all you have to do towards the end of the song is just to play the root notes on that bit. Okay, and then it goes back into the riff. Okay, so hopefully that's helped. Again, I do appreciate that it's quite fast to try and incorporate these muted notes, but hopefully I'm just giving you the idea and it's something that you can break down slowly. So this one, so some Tower of Power, Rocco, so he used to play lots and lots of muted notes, and actually he only played on his fretting hand with his first and second finger. He used to mute the whole time, slightly mute with his third and fourth finger, the whole bass line. So if you're trying to get near to his sound, it's actually really hard, because not many people do that technique. I don't really do that technique. But there's some good muted notes in here. So I'm just going to play that through with the backing track. And it looks a bit complicated to read those first on the intro, those notes. But really, all you have to do is catch the sax. Okay, so you don't really kind of have to read the rhythm for that. Okay. Just that main riff most of the way through that last line once you get into the song. So you've got these are just normal notes. Okay, and then once we get into that middle line, okay, so we've got a D, a muted, and I've just lift it up. It's actually written on an A, but technically doesn't really matter. And then you play 3 muted Ds. And I play that high C with my first finger. And the thing is, when you're playing muted notes, you end up having a slightly different technique. You're not going to use your kind of usual technique, because you need to have all these fingers down if possible. So you move your hand around a lot more to try and incorporate these muted notes. So okay, and really when you're playing it, and if you hear Rocco playing it, he's not playing it exact. This is a kind of sample bass line. He's kind of putting the muted notes in wherever he kind of feels like it. So that's like, it's really hard to try to kind of it's a feel thing. Like I said before a few times, it's about timing. Once you've kind of got these muted notes under your fingers, you put them in wherever you kind of feel like it. So if I just play that middle line, I'll just kind of mess around with it a bit. Okay, and then if we look at the last line, okay, that's the last line. So that's mostly on the D. Okay. Okay. So if you want to start practicing that, I'd go for the last line first and just do it really slowly. Ba 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 ba. Even slower if you need to. And if you feel that you're not going to play it up to speed with the song for ages, it doesn't matter. Just use each line or each bar as an exercise. Okay, so I'll play it up to full speed again. It's a great bass line, actually. Really good song. Okay. I'm going to go around the middle line for a bit longer. And the last line. Okay, so a few of you just joined. Hi Frank. Hi Mr. Bungle. It's 4:30 a.m. Just thanks for joining. So if you've just come on and you're thinking, what's going on here? Well, that's a very tricky bass line that uses muted notes. So some of the early examples that you'll see on the PDF are a lot easier. So we're kind of going back to this kind of thing. So my suggestion is basically look at these early muted note exercises. Really get your technique sounding muted, so percussive, and then even make up some own exercises. You know, you don't have to do it on a D, you can do it on a G down here. And all these exercises you can change on the different notes. So you get a bit of experience on the different strings. And try them higher up the bass. And you can sometimes use muted notes if you're just jumping. Say you're playing a G and then you're playing another G up there. You can use it as you're jumping. And when I'm playing, I'm just playing the muted note anyway on the string as I'm moving up. Okay, and then also just try, so I'm just playing 4 notes on each string. Okay, so just have a little look here in the chat, something Bev. Were they documented? Oh yeah, so the PDF, I'll just show you that in a minute. So that's kind of the main part of really what I wanted to show you. So I'll just get onto this bit here, I'll show you what the PDF is. Right, back to here. So I'll put the PDF here. So it's basically gregsspaceshed.com/002. Here we are. So that's gregsspaceshed.com/002. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the PDF under the link underneath this video as soon as this is published. So after this is finished, you can watch this as many times as you want on my channel, or using the same link that you got onto this live session with. So I'm going to put the PDF, but you can have a look. You can start download that now. So I'll just type it into the chat as well, see if that works. And then, so what would be great now, if you ask any questions you've got, just fire away, related to muted notes or just any bass questions in general, and I'll start to kind of answer those now. So I just put this in now. Okay, that should work, I think. If you can you click on it? I don't know if you can click on it or not, but you can copy and paste. Okay, so thanks RMW. I recognise that, but I'm not sure who that is. I think I recognise it from your email. But explains my struggle. Yeah, so it is Hotel California. Yeah, I spent weeks with that trying to work out, how that worked. Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully you get the PDF. So I'll have a look through, see if there are any other questions. But please put any of your questions in here now. And yeah, thanks for coming along, everyone. It's great to see everyone in there. Oh yeah, can you demonstrate muting and slap? Well, this is the kind of wrong bass for it because it's got flat wounds. But if you're the kind of muted idea with slap is that you play a muted note. Say you've got the E, and you just if you're doing a slap with your thumb, you just slap again and hold it lightly on. doesn't sound great on this flat wounds. But you can also mute if you've got a pluck. You can kind of mute. You can kind of do a pluck like that. Sounds better on a jazz bass, but you can pluck and mute at the same time like that. And it's kind of notated the same way, so you've got a crosshead for that. Notes in reverse by tapping the. Okay, so interesting. I'll put this. Actually, I'll try and put that on here. So, is it sometimes possible to mute notes in reverse by tapping with the fretting hand, mute string with the plucking hand, sort of? Yeah, that's kind of what you're doing. Yeah, so that's what you do with. It just doesn't work on the flat wound strings, but that's kind of. If you're slapping, that's kind of what you do all the time. You kind of there's a pattern that's slap, then making that noise with your left hand, and then playing the string as it's muted. So that is a technique where you're sort of slapping on, making that percussive noise with your left hand. But generally, I don't really see that with fingerstyle. But that's a really good question. But definitely that's a real feature of slapping. That's how you get those kind of fast patterns. So any more questions, anyone? So I'm going to wait a bit because I know they take a bit of time to come through. And if has anyone downloaded the PDF, just put in the chat just to check, see if it's downloading okay. But I'll check that all afterwards. So this is a good one. Try and put that into there. So Jerry Drumott's parts on Memphis Soul Stew. Yeah, I recognise the name of the song, but I don't think I know the bass line. So I'm definitely going to check that out. I'm doing a blues. By the way, I'm doing a blues course at the moment. So I'm sort of trying to do a course that features different bass players and kind of looking at their lines, what they play. And Jerry Drumott I've used for a few of his bass lines. Absolutely brilliant bass player. So yeah, I'm hoping to bring that out kind of in about 6 weeks' time. But it's taken ages to get the backing tracks together. We've got because of COVID, normally I'd kind of go in the studio with a bunch of musicians and just record, but we've had to do it all remotely, send stuff back and forth. Oh yeah, hi Trev. Jacko was a great articulator of ghost notes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really true. There's the kind of like, come over. He does. Something like that. It's been years since I played that, but there's that kind of line, like I played earlier actually. And it's really interesting seeing that notated because everyone's got. He kind of obviously played that different every time. He played the kind of same set of notes, but played different muted notes in different places. So yeah, Jacko's like a really, really good person to look at if you're interested in muted notes. Oh, thanks for the PDF worked for me, so that's great. That's brilliant. Besides Rocco, yeah. So actually, besides Rocco, any other players? Well, yeah, definitely Jacko massively, basically for these muted notes. I think he influenced quite a lot of players. First of all, to start using them. But then a lot of funk players, you hear them, they just do them all the time. So just listen to most people in funk, but no one kind of necessarily springs to mind. James Johnson did a few of them, and he used to play a lot of kind of proper solid open notes as well. Mark King, obviously, that's brilliant, Bev. Mark King for all the slap stuff. Anyone who kind of does slap then uses lots and lots of muted notes in the slap lines, because really a lot of the slap lines are kind of copying drum beats, so that's why you have lots of these percussive notes. Ria, is that what John Taylor of Duran Duran is doing? Actually, I don't. Well, I kind of know Ria. John, so this is John's question. I'll listen and get back to you on that. One's a good question. But sometimes stuff's syncopated, but it's not necessarily with muted notes. Where's the PDF link? So Wayne, you should see it on top of the screen. It should be down here. gregspaceshed.com/002. So if you look back when this finishes, you'll see the link underneath the video, underneath the replay. But it's back here in the chat as well. But then that's what. Just typing gregspaceshed.com/002. Okay. Right, just wait a bit. Yeah, it's frustrating with this chat because it does take sometimes takes 1 or 2 minutes for stuff to come through. But with these muted notes, if you can get them to be kind of automatic, and then you end up just phrasing your bass lines, depending on what the drummer's done, what the drummer's doing at the time. If he's kind of doing a sort of beat, then you can kind of copy with the muted notes. Oh, okay. Are there any other notation symbols indicate? No. So normally, basically, muted note is just always that the crosshead sign. So that's your main sign there. There we are. So I'll just wait around a little bit longer, see if there are any other questions. And then, oh yeah, also I meant to say, if anyone has an idea for any of these live sessions, then just put it in the chat now, or you can always email me or leave a comment underneath this video when you watch the replay, because I'm always really up for doing topics that I know that you want to kind of, you have questions about or you want to see covered. So that's the kind of idea. See if I've got anything else to say while I'm waiting. Yeah, and there's a bit of a gap. I had my reading music live session, but the idea is to do these like at least every 6 weeks, but maybe to start to do them every 4 weeks. So that's the kind of idea. And also, I'm actually sort of experiment with different days. So Friday kind of generally might be the best day, but if there's any other days that people think are better, just let me know and I'll kind of get a general consensus. Do you plan to have lessons? Do I have the good stereo? Do I plan to have lessons for the up? No, I didn't actually, but actually that's an idea. If there's enough people that are interested, obviously I've got the upright there. I play that a lot. Then I kind of, as electric's kind of what I call my main instrument, I've kind of generally just taught on that. But if there's some demand, then I'll definitely think about doing some lessons on the upright as well. I've done a few different features on videos, but no specific exercises. Do you ever see? Oh, that's Floyd. Hi, Floyd. Do I ever see a dotted muted note? Well, because you don't really. What would happen is they'd put a quarter note. If say it's a dotted quarter note, they put a quarter note and then an eighth note rest, because there's no tone, because there's no note to hold on. They never put a dot on it. They'll just always put a rest afterwards. So that's quite a good question. Yeah. Oh, it'd be nice to go for a Jacko jam piece. Yeah, that'd be great actually. Just on a lesson, Trevor. So that's a great idea. Slapping on the 5 string. Yeah, that's a good one actually. I find obviously everyone likes slapping on 4 strings, not on a flat wound P bass, but on a J bass. It's so much easier. But for most of my professional work, we have to take 5 strings out because you kind of need the low notes. And then if you've got any slap stuff, you're slapping on the 5 string, which is more challenging because you've got this low B in the way there. So yeah, that would be quite good to do a lesson. You find you have to really mute that low B. You're not going to be using it much because like a low D doesn't sound great. Sometimes use it. When I'm playing on Hamilton, I think the show there's a low D in there. So sometimes you need to, but that's a great idea. A lesson on Samaldi technique. Yes, I've got my Samaldi book somewhere. But yeah, that might be quite good. That's a good idea. And then Bev, I'd really like to master this, the muted notes. Yeah, so it just start off really slow, and just even if you're just playing just the muted notes, just trying to get that really dead sound. If you lift, remember, if you're hearing harmonics, then you haven't got enough fingers down. Okay. And then start just messing around with it. But again, I can't say enough. Really, it's about the timing of suddenly it would click. If you tried to get it within a groove, it suddenly click. You know how to play them. Okay, if there's I'll wait around a little bit longer, and then I'll call off. So yeah, so what do I want to say? Yeah, so thanks for coming along. I've got a few lists of things to say. So yeah, I've obviously said I'm going to try to do this kind of monthly or maybe every 6 weeks. So if you want to email me, it's greg at gregspaceshed.com. Just give me any ideas or leave a comment below. So the PDF is all there. So that's gregspaceshed.com/002. And then the same link for the replay. So I think that's it. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Actually, I don't want to appear dumb, but where do I put the Greg Spaces? Oh yeah, so if you just type in the top of whatever browser you're on, just type in the top there. That will work. If you're on whatever you're on, Safari or Chrome or whatever you're on, at the top for the web address, just literally double click there and just write it in there. But I'll make sure in a minute, as soon as I go off the call, that I put it underneath the video, so there will be a link there so you can click on that. So hopefully that works. Hi Cliff. Yeah, you can watch the replay. Finding that it's tough on the yeah, it's tougher to get a really kind of, it is tougher to get. Let me put that up there, just so people see. It's tougher to get a dead note on the G string. I find that I have to press down a bit harder with my. Try press down a little bit harder with your fingers. But ultimately, you're going to be using muted notes a lot more on the lower strings, on the E and the A anyway. So. Okay, but yeah, just try maybe press a tiny bit harder on G string, see if that helps. So, oh yeah, Ray Brown, Ron Carter. I don't know if everyone watches them, but it was Durban actually sent me a link to the live masterclasses. So Ron Carter was, it was brilliant watching it last night. So yeah, that's brilliant, and Ray Brown as well. Yeah, so for the jazz on the upright. Yeah, so I could perhaps look at some muted notes on the upright. Be a good idea. Got the PDF. So there's John. I bet you can't wait to go back on the road. No, I actually can't wait. I can't believe it's been over. Well, it's been over a year now. I had one gig in the summer, just when we were allowed to gig again. I had one sort of tiny little festival. It was called. It wasn't really. It was like a live gig, outside gig in someone's just in someone's village in Hertfordshire. So that was my last gig, and I can't wait. I've actually got quite a few dates in around all the Rewind festivals, which are the 80s festivals. So I'm going to those with Symphonic Queen, which is my gig. We're opening all those festivals, so we've got like there's a band, 4 singers, and an orchestra. So we're hopefully going to a few places. I think I guess they will happen. I think I've just had my jab on Sunday, but I think they're likely to happen unless something badly goes wrong, but you never know. So yeah, I actually can't wait to get gigging again actually. So Bev's got that. Thanks John. Oh, good to see you, John. It's nice to see all those names. Yeah, thanks everyone. So yeah, I think that's all. I'm going to sign off now, and thanks for coming along everyone, and I'll see you at the next one, and then I'll choose a topic for that. So it's great. Have a great evening. I'm going to go and get a beer now, I think. Cheers, thanks a lot.